right. Well, we are live and the countdown begins to when I get to actually start this. All right, everyone. Welcome to Ore-atory. Today I have Gus Miner with me, and I'm thrilled that he's here to visit with us. Gus has over 25 years in the technology industry and nearly a decade in mining and minerals. He has a huge amount of experience from the field to leadership, and he is the visionary behind Sofvie, and is passionate about leveraging technology to drive safety and communication in high-risk industries. So welcome, Gus, and thank you for being here.
Oh, thanks, Lindsey. Glad to be here for the conversation.
So today, our topic is extracting meaning from mining and the power of positive recognition. And so I think we're going to go in all kinds of different directions. But I think to kick us off, what's kind of getting you excited about your work these days?
Well, the biggest thing for us and for me in general is when you're watching cultures transform before your eyes, right? I mean, especially when it comes to implementation of technology, it tends to be, specifically in trades and mining and, more blue collar environments, it's how is technology going to help us? And I just want to do my job. Like, why are you bothering me with this tech stuff, right? It's not what I signed up for. But yeah, when you start going through that process and you're leveraging the right messaging as well as leveraging the right tools from a leadership perspective to engage everybody in the conversation and to see the value of what you're bringing to the table, and then all of a sudden within a couple of weeks you start seeing people that didn't want to do any of it at all. They're almost like hard nosed to, oh my God, this has already saved me some time, or if only we would have been able to do this sooner because we're seeing some benefits, and what else can we do? To me, that's super exciting because we know that an engaged workforce and an engaged workplace is inherently and also a safe one, right? I mean, the statistics are behind it, right? That when you've got a team that's engaged and in tuned and working together, that you can be reducing your incidents up to 63%, right? So everybody can do a lot more work and a lot more productive stuff when you don't have to digest so many shortcomings in the workplace, right? So yeah, that's super exciting. And the fact that it's actually enabling people to go home in the same condition or better than they came to work, that's where the recognition comes in general for everyone. It's we've got our clients' backs, and it's fun when you see it come into action.
Yeah, no, you hit on so many areas that I talk about and think are really important for our mining workforce. But I think that this is a really good segue for you to talk a little bit about what your company does, so that we, at least those of us who are not familiar with you, get a better read on what Sofvie does.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So Sofvie was created out of a need. So it started as an idea, then became a product, and then became a company for, to support the product and how we scale. But ultimately, it all started with our branding and our Magna Carta. So Sofvie as a whole, like you look at the spelling and you think, well, how does that say Sofvie? But it was derived from the fact that we knew that we needed to collect a whole lot more insights from what's coming what's happening in the workplace, so that we can make much more accurate decisions when it comes to supporting the workplace. So we leaned into that process, and then we found out that Sophia is the Greek goddess of knowledge and wisdom, and of course we were building a software to facilitate that. So that's where the SOF comes from, and VIE. So we knew that with the right information coming in and the right coaching and mentoring going to the workforce from that, accurate information was going to eventually help us save lives. So VIE is life in French, right? So V. So, and then even when you look at our branding and our logo, like the F is actually a faucet, right? Because our software is here to collect as much information as possible to then digest it and offer life-saving coaching, right? So it was very deep rooted in us right from the beginning, what our mission and journey was going to be like. And having having been brought up in a community of loss, if you will, with people not returning home at the end of the day, from their workplace, whether it's a serious injury or a fatality, it's never something that a community wants to experience, and much less the families. So it making sure that we offer as much support as possible to the workforce, so that they can deliver with quality and safety in mind, was imperative. So that's what we do. We provide a mobile application. We provide data visualization services. We do all of the implementation support and best practices. So it's when you're signing up with Sofvie, you're not just buying a product and saying, I'm going to take this software and it's going to make it happen. We really, really lean into your leadership, and work on, without forcing standardization across the mining segment, offering some of the shared experiences, right, with between clients, and some of the best practices of what we've seen has worked really well and not, which inadvertently does lend well to some form of standardization in the workplace. And as a result, that's the feedback we've been getting. Like the tool was built specifically for the workforce, by the workforce, like having come out of mining to do this work. And we've got other mining folks that are part of our team. It's all built with mining and heavy industry as design, so that it could be well adopted and adapted to the workforce that's there. So whether you're 18 or 88, it's going to work out well for you. The velocity at which you learn how to leverage it will change depending on your experience with devices. But overall, we've seen that mostly everybody picks it up within minutes, which is really good.
That's great.
And that's what we do. So you don't only pick up a product that's going to help your organization, but you also sign up for a way of being, and you bring on our entire team to support you. So when it comes to the clients we serve, that's exactly what we're looking for as well, right? If this is exactly what you need to do from a serious injury or fatality prevention program, or critical risk management, that you're ready to start engaging the workforce, that's when we come in and help you out as much as possible.
Yeah, and I have an HR background, and so we speak a lot about employee engagement and the need for it, right? And I think that as my career has evolved in recruitment and HR support, that engagement has taken on a whole lot of other forms. And so you're essentially leveraging an engaged workforce to be a safe one. And it makes a huge amount of sense to me, because when you got people that are working together as a team and value one another, one, it's a great retention strategy, but two, it's a great safety strategy. And so you're sort of leaning into that. And I love seeing that, because often, early in my career, I'd see health and safety be smashed in with HR. And as this culture of safety has taken its own entity, which I think is really critical, health and safety is its own branch, but they still need to work together. And ultimately, this engagement across all these areas is super, super critical. So I love seeing that you're sort of using technology, HR, safety, et cetera, to kind of create this platform to get people to go home happy, healthy, safe, and with all of their parts and pieces working.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And it all comes back to the core values of the organization as well, right? So how do you hire based on your core values, and then how do you retain based on that? So having the ability to measure how people perform in relation to your core values is significant, right? How do you hold on to somebody if you know whether they're performing or not, and whether or not they're in line with your mission and vision and core values? And then at the same time, how do you hold on to the people that do the best job at doing that, so you can cultivate the culture of choice? Mm-hmm. And without real insights from the workplace, you can't measure that, and you probably never will. So yeah, so a lot of this stuff is what we bring to the table, and where we saw a fantastic tool. And it's important that I say this, because it's not a financial support tool. It is a cultural support tool. So a lot of times people mix up positive recognition with gift cards. And then it's like, okay, well, are you trying to buy some recognitions for a gift card, or are you trying to elevate the culture? Because we know that from a gift card perspective, that novelty will wear off pretty quick. But knowing that people have your back and knowing how people make you feel around you in the workplace, that lasts forever. And it's one thing that we're starting to realize now is that as much as we try to reduce turnover, our clients are still having some level of turnover, because sometimes it's just a good career move to go to a different organization.
Right.
But the resounding feedback that we get for people that have turned is either one, a phone call from the next company because they want to instill that there.
Yep.
But two is that they feel exposed now and they have to do what they need to do to regain that comfort level in a new organization.
Sure.
So when you think about that perspective, if you feel happy, comfortable, and protected, for what reason do you need to move from where you are? And a lot of those things have no financial implication at all. Like, you could be making a few extra dollars somewhere else, but are you going to have that level of comfort? And the way that we're seeing the transitions on how the law is coming down and cracking down on the workplaces, and we're starting to see not only employers but supervisors and workers getting personal fines around their misconduct or around their neglect around health and safety practices.
Sure.
That protection comes in very handy, where you're able to prove that you've done your due diligence, and that you're able to prove that you're truly trying to do what's right for the workplace, and avoid some of those impacts. So, yeah, I mean, there's so much to unpack here when it comes to workplace engagement and building a culture of choice. It can go in many ways. We can probably talk about it for a couple of days.
I was going to say, like, a big soapbox for me more recently has been helping companies dig into what is their culture. And I ask that question almost every time I start a search. And often there's an exact answer. But sometimes HR has the answer, but the hiring manager says, well, like, it's up to interpretation. And when you are working really hard to establish a culture, you want that to be what everybody understands unilaterally, right? And so with this tool, I imagine that it's much easier to help create that and trickle that out and have some buy-in and understanding and reinforcement of what a culture really looks like. But I think beyond that, like, creating an employee value proposition is part of that. And so why do you work here? Is it because you have a foundation of psychological safety and engagement and value and being respected? All of that is really huge. And I think companies are becoming more and more mindful, out of necessity in some situations, to create these kinds of cultures and organizations so that they can attract talent. And so I love that you've got sort of a solution for some of them, because it's really hard to tackle on your own. I mean, it's much easier if you do it when you're starting. And so to go in and plunk this in retroactively, is important, but I'm sure a lot more work than if they had tried to do it from the onset, right?
Yeah, and then, to be honest, we can't do it alone either, right? So it's very much a collaboration between us and the client, but we've also made some significant strides forward with some leadership support as well. So we've been working a lot with the Brevia Consulting Group and with Stephen DeGroot in particular. And what has been brought up here is that he's learned a lot of things when it comes to human behavior, starting, going everywhere from inmates to army to mining to construction, like all over the place. And there's some fundamental requirements when it comes to keeping everybody together. And when you're making decisions and you're deciding, I need the workplace to be X, well, there's three specific pillars that we need to pay a lot of attention to. Is how is this process or decision or requirement going to help people feel safe, significant, and situated, right? So are they safe to report? Do they have that psychological safety? Are they going to be physically safe? Do they feel like participating in this will matter? Do they make a difference in the organization by participating in that or doing what needs to be done? And then, are they situated? Have they got all the information they need to be able to produce? And are there any gaps that we need to close before we kind of send this off to the wild? So So by leveraging those three fundamental rules, if you will, when you're making some processes come to life, or when you're communicating with people, it's like, which one of these is being toppled over? Are you considering all three of these things? And some people will have a larger value on one pillar to the next.
Sure.
But the main goal is to make sure that we consider all those things. And the more that we were working with that group to make the Sofvie culture be what it's supposed to be and what we want it to be, so that we can then project it, forward to our clients, is how does our tool help support that? And what we have uncovered is that, my gosh, like everything that we're doing within our capacity of our system, and how we're coaching and mentoring our clients to leverage it, is in fact factoring in these three things constantly. And then you tap into, beyond making sure that people are, they feel safe, significant, and situated, or they feel heard and acknowledged and part of the bigger picture. Then it's, how do we measure and support core values of the organization? Because everybody, most organizations will either be on the path of defining what their core values are to help with their HR recruiting and retention processes, and also building a culture of choice, or they have already got them in place. And some people might not know who they are anymore, and it's not top of mind. So how do we measure what's happening against our core values, so that we can confirm and affirm people that are well in line with the organizational culture of choice? And where do we need to apply our efforts from a coaching and mentoring standpoint? So yeah, like I said, for us, it's been a mission of, well beyond building a software to help the workplace, is how do we bridge the gap within our human resources capacities to build a higher level of retention and build that engagement. Because I've seen it myself, like a team that's maybe 10 or 15 that's super in tune and super engaged and well gelled together, they'll outperform a team of 100 very, very easily, right? They've got that capacity to do so. So how do we get that team of 100 to also outperform a team of 1,000?
Sure.
So the capacity is there. We just need to tap into it.
Well, and as we think about utilizing technology and understanding sort of the human behavior and balance those two worlds out, because they are different, right? But leveraging technology to help with the human side makes it feel really interesting. And I think that a lot of people are really leaning into the technology side as an aid, because it's less cumbersome to look at your phone, look at an app, look at a tool and say like, oh yeah, these are our core values. I absolutely do those every single day, rather than say like, oh, I remember when I was onboarded, we talked about this one time, right? And having meetings on a quarterly basis or whatever to kind of like repound that back into you. So it's nice that it's as easy to access as possible. And I love the way that you talk about sort of like the coaching and mentoring of your clients in order to get this to move forward. Because I think leveraging, understanding, and learning new tools and tricks as you advance in your career is a huge component of also having that like retention and engagement aspect. And some people, I imagine, may say like, oh, fiddle, like I don't want to do this, and just not buy into it, and they self-select out perhaps. But those who think it's really cool are probably buying in, and as you said, like if they decide to leave and move forward, they're a huge advocate for you to go into the next organization because they saw how well something like this works. And so I love all of these little tools and tricks, and the ability to coach and mentor people forward in their careers, because it makes such a difference. But having companies that are values oriented, I think, is so important for every aspect of the organization, and it does impact the bottom line, because people are producing and they're safe and there's less fines and there's less turnover and all of the things that we're sort of driving towards every single day anyway. So I think mining tends to be very production focused, but you could probably even use some of your data to say this is supporting your production, I imagine.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then we're at an interesting point in mining in general, because there's a lot more technology being adopted. But at the same time, when it comes to professional development, if we start thinking, what can we do to the workforce to upskill them for the future? Right now is the time to lift your hand. So if you are catching wind of a new software, a new technology, or a new process, or a new project that's happening in the organization, put your hand up, because if you fast forward maybe 10, 15 years from now, it's all going to be installed and it's all going to be part of how you do work, and it's already going to be there.
Yeah.
So it's good. So right now, what I like the most about having the experience to implement new things is a massive, massive tool to have on your belt that, hey, I've rolled this out to X amount of people and succeeded. And the other thing is that you get to learn a lot about human behavior. So post project, you go back to your roles and you're like, wow, I now know how difficult it was to communicate at mass. I now know how difficult it was to engage people at different levels. You can be a much, much stronger team player. So I've always encouraged people, it's like, hey, you got a project launching, put your hand up, get yourself in there. It might not be in your field of expertise, but trust me, you will learn a lot from it. And then again, it's a skill that you don't just develop anywhere. You can only develop it by doing it. So it's a very much a learning that happens on the fly.
Well, and you say that, and I immediately go to I mean, you said the word upskill. I think that that's an area that we need to be mindful of. We don't have enough people in our industry, right? So keeping them safe, keeping them engaged, keeping them here are all really important, but keeping them moving forward, because we have people that perhaps have a technical background or don't have a degree or who have never had a leadership or management type role, but helping roll something out like this and using this as a tool, I think would really aid them in their ability to lead and manage and understand people. And that is huge. And that's upskilling in itself, right? So that's sort of another area that just makes the light bulb go off for me.
Yeah, oh, for sure. And it's funny because the people that have been participating to date with our clients are the most unlikely people to be part of the process, right? Like at the beginning, like, okay, I'll do this, but they're very reluctant. And at the end, they're the strongest champions you can ever see, because once they've made up their mind, there's no deviating from that. And then, like you said, they've got that new skill that if they want to go somewhere else in the future, and they're like, oh, you want to roll out? I've done that. Yeah. I've encouraged it to everyone.
I think that's huge. Well, I want to kind of touch back on sort of like the power of recognition and engagement. And I think you provided us with a statistic that said, that workers are 92% more likely to repeat actions when recognized, and organizations with recognition programs are 70% more likely to retain employees. Those are seriously high numbers.
They're massive, and we've seen it in real time. So yes, there was information on the internet to help us validate this stuff, but at the same time, we've seen it firsthand in the way that we communicate this as a whole, because not everybody's ready to start using the positive recognition program that we have, even though it's embedded everywhere. But we said, listen, like, we can have all of our deliberate activities as much as we want to pick up the opportunities to be better. So whether it's a quality assurance, whether it's QC, whether it's audits and inspections to make sure that things are delivered the way they're supposed to, or to mitigate hazards that have presented themselves in the workplace. So we have all of these tools to pick up the stuff that we want to correct and the stuff they want to do to be better. But a lot of this stuff might not exist if the behaviors aren't there to even expose them in the first place. So why not take all the same opportunity to acknowledge the things that are going well, and catching people in the act of doing things right, and giving that acknowledgement of how much it matters for them to do so.
Yeah.
And then you start breeding and fostering that drive to continuously do those things, and you end up eliminating a lot of the the byproduct behaviors, if you will, or the behaviors that you're not looking for, that create the opportunity for lower quality and lower safety issues.
Mm-hmm.
So or raise safety issues. So yeah, I mean, from a statistics standpoint, and when you're saying like, hey, you got a 92% chance that it's going to be better if you just say thanks every once in a while, like it's quite drastic. And we've seen it now where at the beginning, this program starts off as managers kind of leading the way and saying, hey, thank you everyone for doing the right thing. And then they'll do group acknowledgements or individual ones through visible felt leadership programs and so on. But then when you start seeing the supervisors kind of engaging in it, and then all of a sudden the workers are acknowledging each other, I mean, that's a massive leap from my effing cross shift did this to mess me up
Right.
to, hey, thanks for setting me up for my shift because now I can actually crush it, literally today. Once you start seeing that acknowledgement happening between the workforce, and now we're starting to see a lot of the workforce acknowledging their supervisors and managers for helping them have the right tools, helping them having the right information. And without that coaching and mentoring, I would have never succeeded that day. We started seeing some workers that you would never think they would write a letter, and then they're almost like love letters,
Yeah.
like going upward, saying, I felt super accomplished today, and I was able to really over exceed what I was aiming to do today, and it was with your support. Thank you. And it just kind of feeds itself, and then you can feel it, and that's where when you got employees or people that are coming into an organization and they walk into a building or they walk into a workplace and they're like, I haven't spoke to anybody, but it feels different here.
Yeah.
There you go, right?
I think thank you goes a long way. And not that long ago, I got an email from a candidate that I rejected, and they were really excited for a role, and it was a letdown. And I got an email from them, and they said, thank you for giving me the feedback, for walking me through the process. I've never done this before. And I was like, oh, they said thank you, and rejected them, and so thank you goes a very, very long way. And some of us do not hear it often enough, specifically at work. And so I love to hear that it's going in both directions, that people are thanking their supervisors and managers for supporting them and setting them up for success, and vice versa, and even peer to peer. I think, like you said, when you walk in somewhere and it just feels different, you want to be there, versus when you walk in somewhere and you're like, ooh, do I want to be here? Did somebody just, like, is everybody having a bad day? That doesn't set anybody up for success, retention, acknowledgement in a positive way, or anything else. And I always use anecdotes about my kids, and I'm like, if I tell one of them, like, don't hit the red button, the first thing he wants to do is hit the red button.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you for not hitting the red button. He's like, oh, I did so good, right?
Exactly. And that's why I brought up the whole gift card thing too, because like when we look, so one of our clients, they fluctuate between 400 and 500 people, right? And everybody's on board with this. And last year they recorded just under 27,000 positive recognitions.
Wow.
Without a single gift card, right?
Wow.
They're doing it because they want to, and they're doing it because that's just the culture that exists now. Yeah. Of making sure that you acknowledge people for good work, and then you get in whatever you put out in that regard, you get twofold, if not threefold back. So, and then that's when you know that the program is alive and well, and that's going to live for a long time, because it's not backed by short-term compensation or short-term like shiny objects, if you will. So that's remarkable when we're able to pull out those statistics and say like, hey, so most of the time we just show the total amount of positive recognitions, and then people say, oh, that must be an organization of like 5,000 to 6,000 people, expecting that they're going to do 3 a year kind of. No, this is like 400 to 500 people, and they're doing this every single day, right? But again, that's a testament to the CEO and to the senior leadership. Mm-hmm. They start their day at that organization. They start their day looking at which positive recognitions have come in the past 24 hours. That's right. And then they offer insights, and they're like, wow, that made me feel good. Like, now I know my culture is on fire. Great. Now let's go to the next thing, which is auditing shift information, auditing other stuff randomly. But the first order of magnitude is, what is the buzz of the organization now? Yeah. And there's no better way to understand, the pulse of the organization from a culture perspective than to start by reading those acknowledgments. So, and then once the senior leadership is caught on with that, well, then it just perpetuates through the whole system, right?
Yeah. I think it's really, really, that's a huge, huge number to see. And I would count that as a win for that company and for you guys to say, hey, this is a success story that is in real time, and share with others. One area that we have not touched on that I think is really fascinating, and I recognize we're sort of coming up on our time law, but is sort of acknowledgement, that recognition allows for innovation. And so the engagement, the acknowledgement, this foundation allows for employees to be engaging in innovative thought with the organization. So tell me a little bit about that in your experience.
Well, so there's one in the organization in particular where they really polled their audience or their workplace to see, hey, this was a challenging project, was to roll out to every single person, but at the same time, now we've got visibility for a lot more than we've ever had. So we look forward to your feedback on where else we can innovate. So one of the things that we talk about at Sofvie all the time is that every feature drives 3 more features. So like you've planted the seed on what's possible, and then all of a sudden it blossoms into a lot more requests and a lot more stuff they want to do.
Yeah.
So the same thing exists with innovation in the workplace, is that once you've implemented a solution of whatever kind, like whatever it's a hardware, so like whatever it is that you've innovated what you've done, opening up the door to say, now that you've seen the impacts of this idea, do you have any other ideas that you want to share with us that may have an equal or greater impact than what we've already done? And this organization in particular went from kind of not having too much feedback on how to be better from the workplace to all of a sudden they had over 600 innovative ideas to bring forward and to improve process or improve the workplace in general.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them are really easy to put in place. Some of them take a little bit more thought, but this is feedback that without having that door open, you would have never received, and you would have never even known that it was even a gap in the first place.
Yeah.
So if you think about, if you just put a ballpark figure on, that every idea may have helped keep one employee and possibly helped reduce 5 to 10 hours worth of labor, because now you've solved that gap, and you do that times 600, and this is being very, very conservative, like by all means, that's a massive impact to the organization.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I think the idea of employee-led innovation is huge, and giving them a foundation in order to feel safe enough to come forward with something, right? Because I think I hear stories all the time, I think we should do something different, and I just got told no, and I don't want to do this anymore. And it leads to somebody leaving an organization because they don't feel valued or heard or respected. And so when you have, this culture that you're helping them put into place because it's part of their core values and they're living it, the idea that they can allow innovative thought and save money or improve processes is huge. So I sort of like to see that come full circle. And I know that you've got to sort of bounce to the next thing, but I guess to close off, not that you haven't done probably plenty, but what are you doing from your perspective to make the mining industry a better place?
We're just constantly driving that message across how important it is to include the workforce, right? Like we're leaning on the workforce to deliver everything, yet we want to kind of dictate everything all the time. Open a door for them to feed information back, make them part of the process, making part of the decision-making process, making sure that you do your risk assessments and your site evaluations with them. It will change everything. And if you're fearful that once you've opened that door that you're going to be inundated with requests and demand, you're probably not, actually, because at the beginning, they're probably not going to believe you, because if that's not what the culture was previously, what's to prove that just because you said so that it's going to be a thing? So it does take a while to get that engine running. So don't worry about being flooded. And then once it starts running, the big thing is that, start getting some early wins on that feedback. And that's what's going to get the wheel moving forward a lot quicker, and you'll be able to stay on top of it. But yeah, I can't stress enough the requirement to engage the workforce and to work on workforce engagement as a whole. It will transform your business without a doubt.
Well, I absolutely believe it. And I'm super excited that there's a product like this and sort of a cultural change initiative like this available. So thank you for dreaming it up and doing this in a place that can certainly stand to benefit from it. So if you guys would like to connect with Gus after this, I've got his information below, including his LinkedIn and his company website. If there are any questions, I see we've got a few comments, but if there are any questions, Stephen DeGroot, who you mentioned, is sort of watching here. So, if there are questions, comments, etc., we'll hang out for a few minutes and answer those. Otherwise, feel free to engage in the comments on LinkedIn. We will get back to you one way or another in the next few days. But thank you all for being here. And next month, I have the amazing Julie Lucas, and we will be chatting with her third week of, I guess, November. Goodness. So this year's flying by. But guys, thank you so much for being here and teaching us a little bit more about you and your company and what we should be doing. So
very good. Thanks, Mish. Thanks for having me. It was a great conversation.
Awesome. Have a good one.
Have a good one, everyone.
Bye.